Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm Jay Heilman, host of Kingdom Builder TV. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about this interview you're about to watch. I'll be joined by P.O.D. frontman Sonny Sandoval, and he's here to talk about his brand new book, Son of Southtown, My Life Between Two Worlds. And he'll be joining us not only to talk about that new book, but his career in P.O.D. as well. And I can't wait for you to see this. So do us a favor, after you get done watching this video, click on that like button, hit subscribe, and be sure to share this interview so that way other people can see all the stuff that we got going on here with Kingdom Builder. Thank you so much in advance for checking this out, and God bless you. Hey everyone, joining me today from the multi-platinum band P.O.D, I have Sonny Sandoval with me today. Sonny, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, how's it going, brother? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, man. I was telling you pre-interview that last time I saw P.O.D play in concert, I actually interviewed you at that show. It was at Night of Joy 2009. It was one of those few years that they actually had it at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and man, it's an event that I missed, man. But you guys totally rocked it that night.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I remember that because I was able to take my family that whole week. My son was he's my youngest, but I think he wasn't even 2 yet, and they totally hooked us up, man, with all the theme parks for all week long, and we got to stay there, and so we still talk about it to this day.
And you know what's funny is that, when we were setting up interviews for that, they had sent me a list of interviews, people that were going to be there. Of course, P.O.D was the one that I asked for. I'm like, is Sonny going to be there? I'd love to talk with him. No, Sonny's probably not going to be there, but I prepared questions anyway. And lo and behold, man, I'm sitting there at the table and you walk in. First off, I didn't recognize you because I think you had just cut your hair. And, I was so used to like all the other music fans seeing you with the really long dreads and stuff, and here you walk up with a baseball cap, no dreads, and I'm like,
yeah,
who is this? And he's like, from P.O.D. I'm like, what? I didn't even recognize you, man. You're like, I never ever thought I'd see you, without those trademark dreads, man. So that was just crazy. But I've read over the years and stuff, when you do interviews and stuff and talking about your faith and everything, you credit your late mom for being the one that led you to Jesus. And, I want to kind of take this moment to give, for you to be able to give her props on that. Tell us about her and how she influenced you in finding Jesus in your life, man.
For sure, man. I mean, my mother was a beautiful soul. She passed away at 37 of leukemia. And I mean, pretty much God had already started doing a work in my entire family, and I started to see people were getting saved here and there. My uncle, my aunt, and my mom got saved, and we started going to church. And so it was a completely different lifestyle than what we were raised into, right? From a young family, a lot of partying that was going on, and just street life stuff. So when Jesus entered the picture, it was obvious that it was good, right? And it was different. And so I'd always loved God. I always had a respect for God. I grew up in with a Catholic grandmother from Italy, you know what I mean? It's old school. And so I always had love for God. I just didn't have a relationship with him. I didn't know that he wanted a relationship with me, And so when I started to watch my mom and all that stuff happen, like I said, I always had love for her. But when she got sick is when it really hit me, because I saw peace in her life, and I saw, she had joy, and she trusted in the God that she served, So obviously, when she got super sick, I had an encounter with God, and I just asked God, if he's going to take my mom, then if he needed to make himself real to me. And Jesus did that in that parking lot, and she passed away that day. And ever since then, it's just been a learning process,
Wow. Yeah. I was reading about that. I'm like, man, I got to touch on that. Cause I had some influences in my life that led me to Christ, which was, amazing. My late wife, actually passed away in 2021. She was 37 also, died of COVID.
I'm sorry, bro.
But she was a huge influence on, and one of the biggest reasons I know Jesus today, man. So I wanted you to
Yeah.
take that moment to just be able to honor her about that. But
Thank you,
P.O.D
brother.
is a band that you've been doing since the early '90s, and like
Hmm.
I was telling you, I've been a longtime fan, and longevity and success is not something that every band enjoys, but yet you guys kind of broke that mold. You guys, were are labeled like a Christian metal band, new
Hmm.
metal, stuff like that, but. I noticed the quote on the book release. It says that you were too secular for the church, but too mainstream. I'm sorry, too mainstream for the church,
Yeah.
but too. So it's. I thought that was always cool, and you know, we're in 2025 now. You guys have been a band for over 30 years now. When looking back on,
Yeah.
uh, what would you think the biggest reason? Well, what would you credit the biggest reason is that you guys have been so successful and still here and relevant in 2025?
I mean, I think as a band and as we came out of that hardcore scene, like I don't really know if we were ever meant to be in the mainstream, you know what I mean? But I really do believe that God honored our hearts. When I never had plans of being in a band, or it's nothing that I ever dreamed of doing. And I still get nervous when I have to speak in front of a crowd, you know what I mean? After all these years, because that's really not my character. But when I did get saved and I started to learn about who Jesus was, then I asked God. I said, God, if I want my friends to get saved. I want the people in my neighborhood to get saved. I want them to know, who you are and who you're revealing to me, because this is the beautiful thing. The world needs to know you, God. And I had asked God, I said, if you can, I don't know what I have, but use my life. And when I got asked to be in a band, that was foreign to me. I had actually said no, but then things had happened and lined up, and then that I felt like God was saying, you're supposed to do this. And I never thought that I'd leave San Diego. You know what I mean? We've always worked jobs, but we just kept going after it. And it wasn't until we got into the mainstream, because when you're in that hardcore scene, everybody stands for something. Everybody believes in something, and we respect each other for what you believe in. It wasn't until we got into the mainstream they were like, oh, you guys are too Christian, or you're too, there's no room for that here. You know what I mean? This is rock and roll, but whereas Christians in the church, this is 33 years ago, they saw us and they heard the heavy music, they saw the tattoos, to them, it wasn't of God. So that was a very confusing time for all of us, because our hearts were right. We're like, Lord, but this is your band and we just want to stand up for you. But all of a sudden, here we are, new believers, and our own family isn't accepting us. And so that was a learning process and an experience. And so I think when we got such pushback from the Christian communities, that's when we knew we were kind of doing the right thing, and that we were supposed to be in the secular world. So that's why we don't ever say we're a Christian band or whatever. We're just a rock band. But if you want to talk about Jesus, we'll talk about it all day. That's undeniable. So, we just continue to do our thing. We signed to a major label, and I think, we always had the mentality of, we always had to be better than the band that we were playing with, because we already knew they were going to count us out the moment we said Jesus, or the moment they found out we were Christians. It was like, P.O.D's cool and stuff, but it's like a Christian thing. And that we never wanted anybody to ever feel that way. You know what I mean? So we just always played music for anybody who would listen.
Yeah, it's cool. And, like I said, I've been a fan for a long time. And, going back to 2001, I really became like kind of the super P.O.D fan when you guys released Satellite in 2001. But, the Satellite record was your fourth record. The Fundamental Elements of Southtown was really it was a record that really kind of put you guys on the map. But Satellite is what blew P.O.D up. I mean, you guys were on TRL and stuff. I remember watching that show just out of high school and stuff, and it's like, these guys are cool. But your most commercially successful record was the Satellite record, which came out on September 11th, 2001. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. But I remember the excitement leading up to September 11th, because for me, being a huge music fan, I'm like, Tuesday, man. Tuesday, September 11th, I get to go get the satellite record because I had heard some things before that, but I was finally going to go get it, and I didn't end up getting it that day. But guess what? September 12th, I went out and bought a CD copy of it. Man, I
Mm,
played that thing straight for 2 weeks because it was kind of an escape for me from
yeah,
the reality of what happened that day. And you have Alive, Youth of the Nation, Boom, in the title track. But for you, I mean, that's my favorite POD record. For you, and
thank
I
you,
know
man.
it's kind of like naming your favorite child, but looking back on all the records you guys have done over the years, what would you say that your favorite POD record? What was the one that was like most fun for you to do in your career?
I mean, it's like you said. I mean, they were all special moments in time, um, and obviously, you're right. Satellite had the most commercial success because at the time, the world was looking for hope. The world was looking for something, and we happened to be that band in rock and roll at the time that was saying, "Hey, we love God. God loves you." You know what I mean? There's hope in Him, and so it wasn't as offensive as it was before, right before 9/11, because people were looking for those things. But luckily, with the album previous to that, we went platinum, which we never knew that was going to happen. That's 1 million records sold in America, but that was just through hard work and grinding and going on amazing tours and huge bands that we looked up to that were willing to take us out. So it was super cool that these bands were like, I love these guys. They weren't judging us for our beliefs. They were just like, these guys rock, and I'm going to take them on tour. And we worked our butts off. And so, we were kind of, we earned all those album sales. We kind of knew that was going to lead into satellite, but I mean, who could have predicted 9/11? And as soon as that happened, we just happened to be that band that was saying what the world needed at the time. And unfortunately, here we are, over 20 years later, and we've gotten numb again to that stuff, and people in this world only want God when it suits them, or when they're in those moments. But we need God every day, whether we're doing great or whether we're not.
Amen, man. And that over 20 years later, that record still rocks. Well,
Thanks, man.
man, I'm really excited about this because you're about to release a new book. And
Mm.
I always think these things are cool because, I love finding out like all the behind the scenes stuff on my favorite bands and stuff. So you kind of, you delve into this in your new book. It's called Son of Southtown, My Life Between Two Worlds. Going to be releasing here soon. Um, First off, we're releasing this book in 2025, man. So what was the inspiration of finally sitting down and like kind of piecing your life and experience and stuff together for this new book?
I mean, my life has been so crazy, in POD, and POD has always been 100%. And it actually kind of just started actually during the whole kind of coronavirus period and COVID, and I was able to do some solo music, some solo reggae music. And it got me just sitting down thinking, I mean, I always knew at some point I wanted to do a book. Maybe I never really had the time to do it. So I just started, putting thoughts down, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I just started it. And then almost 2 years later, it's coming out, but it's really just, it's an easy, simple read. It's kind of a fast forward look of, where I was born, where I come from, my mom passing away, which led me to Jesus and giving my life to Him, and then being in this band and then going through the ups and downs of rock and roll, trying to maintain my faith, as hard as that is. And but it's not. I didn't want to do like a how to do Christianity book, you know what I mean? Or here's the 5 steps to being the perfect Christian, because there is no such thing, Here's the 5 steps to walking with God. It's like, dude, you just got to walk, bro. So I wanted it to be relatable, just like POD always has to the world. We want to be relatable, and I want everybody to pick it up and read it. And I wanted it to be real.
Yeah, and in the description of the book it says raw and honest, and those are the kind of books I like, man, because it's like, let's be honest, our lives aren't peaches and cream, man.
That's right, man.
A lot of crap that happens in between.
Yep.
And one of the very first interviews I did for Kingdom Builder TV back in 2008 was with your buddy Brian Welch from Korn. And I had just read his book, Save Me From Myself, and that was a brutally honest book. And I just loved how transparent he was with that book, and not only just talking about his experience with Korn, but being able just being
Yeah.
honest about his rise to Christianity, which is really cool. And that's what I'm really enjoying so far about reading this book, is being able to get that behind the scenes, raw and honest look at Sonny
Yeah.
Sandoval and just what you've gone through to get to where you were to where you are today, man. And that's just it's incredible. And I would encourage readers to check it out if you're a fan of P.O.D. If
Thanks,
you're a
man.
fan of just reading about somebody who doesn't quite have it figured out yet, because I haven't quite figured it out yet.
That's right, bro.
This is the book for you. And
That's
you
awesome.
talk about a lot of the stuff that you do with the music and stuff and that, but one of the projects that you do outside of POD that I've always thought is just amazing is your work with the Whosoevers. Let's quickly talk about the Whosoevers and how you got that started, and what you were wanting to do with that when you got that out there.
Yeah, man. I think the birth of the Whosoevers was about 2009. But it's that same thing, being in rock and roll and almost feeling alone, even in your Christianity. That most Christians that are locked in four walls of a church, they're kind of clueless to the real world. You know what I mean? And they stay sheltered, like they're afraid of their own shadows. You know what I mean? And so you have people that that don't have the luxury of working in a safe Christian environment. They're actually in the real world, but they love God and they hustle and they do their work and they go to church on Sunday. You know what I mean? And they're living life. And I think just for so long being in the music industry, I just got jaded to so much stuff, and I just came to a point that I realized that, man, I was just kind of lukewarm in my walk with God, and I didn't want to be that way. I wanted my walk with Jesus to be intimate, and real and hardcore, like it was when I first discovered it. But I couldn't do that with the Christians that were surrounding me, because but I had Ryan Reese, and Brian had Welch had just given his life to the Lord, and there was other guys in Metal Militia and Lacey Sturm. They were all Christians, but they were in the real world. So, bro, you get around certain Christians or that institution of Christianity, and they just don't know how to relate to you. They don't know how to talk like we do, So for us, it was more of a brotherhood, sisterhood. But because it was so authentic and genuine, people were giving us 2 extra minutes to listen to our story, because it was about rock and roll. It was about, we were being vulnerable about our struggles and addictions and everything under the sun. But the answer was Jesus. That was the answer that we had, and people, they related to it. And so we were able to go out, and it's just morphed into all these years, and we've been able to go into high schools and rehabs and detention centers and just love people where they're at. You know what I mean? It's not a judgmental thing. It's just, we just know that the answer is Jesus. And if they're willing to listen to it from us, because we have nothing to gain from it. We'll go into these schools, or we'll go to a detention center or a rehab, and they're wondering, what the heck are you guys doing here? You guys are gonna be on tour next week. You're playing in front of all these people, and you guys chose to come speak to 6 kids in a detention center or in a rehab. And it's like, yes, because we love you guys. You know what I mean? And that's where our heart's at. And I need that. I need that in my life. You know what I mean? I can't be around, just whatever, the hypocrisy of religion, bro. And even Christians that are still just trying to figure it out themselves. But when they act like they got it figured out, that's when we just don't connect. So I need to be around realness, and that just happens to be, the people that I'm surrounded with the Whosoevers.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I've always enjoyed your work with every time I see someone talking about that, I got to go check out. I'm like, oh, I got to check this out, because it's just an amazing thing that you guys do, and it just shows that you guys are human, and I just
Thanks,
love
man.
that. And POD, jumping back to POD real quick, you guys released a new record, Burritas, last year. And you guys toured that record with Bad Wolves, Norma Jean, and Blind Channel. Now I'm curious, because I didn't get a chance to see you guys on tour last year. But is there plans for POD to go on the road or do some touring this year in 2025?
Yeah, for sure. The album it still hasn't even been out a year. We toured the United States, and then we went straight to Europe for all the festivals. And then we've been doing a lot of fly out stuff. Touring is different now. It's different these days, and rock and roll is different. So we try to tour smarter. We leave this week for that Shiprock cruise. And then in March, we head over to Europe with supporting main direct support for Godsmack, which is already doing great. And so, and there's already tours that are lining up in the United States for the summer. So we're going to stay busy. We'll drop a second single off that record. And yeah, bro, I'm lucky, bro. I'm lucky that get to still do this after 33 years. And so we're excited for 2025.
Yeah, I hope you get into Florida, man. I'm in Tampa, Florida, so I'm hoping you guys make it down this way.
I think we'll be at Welcome to Rockville. Isn't that at Daytona?
Rockville, yeah, Daytona Beach. I went last year. I went and saw Skip last year. It was a great show. Well, closing out with this question, you're going to go back to the book, Son of Southtown. Every project, every album, every book, the goal is to have a takeaway. And when people go and read this book, what's the biggest thing that you want readers to take away from Son of Southtown when they're done reading it?
I mean, the bottom line is, bro, is that it's about Jesus. He changes lives, he saves, he rescues. It's not, but I want it to relate to people because, unfortunately, even as believers, we've done a bad job with communicating to a dying world that of who Jesus is. So in most of the world, they don't have a problem with Jesus. They have a problem with Christians, right? And we're all guilty of that. At some point or other, we've been holier than thou, or we've been judgmental, or we've been quick to say, this is wrong, you're wrong, where, my Bible says that Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, but he came to save it. And so because we've experienced God's grace and his mercy and a life-changing power, we should be broken. We should be broken that the world doesn't know the Jesus like we know him. And I've been walking with God for a long time now. And like I said, it's not that I got it figured out. I need God every single day. And I guess in my book, what I'm trying to say is that I never planned this life. I didn't plan on being here. I didn't know I'd live past 30, but here I am still loving God and trusting God and being a person that has had the world in front of them. And everything that the world could throw at you, like, I don't want it. It's not peace. It's not satisfying. It's not fulfilling. And so this world is temporary. It doesn't mean we still can enjoy. We still got to live our lives, right, to the fullest. But the most important thing is setting our hearts and our minds on the things that are eternal, and that's our salvation in God, man. So again, bro, I'm no preacher. I believe that it's real, and I believe that God is for you. He's for everyone, and he just wants you to know who he is. And so I hope that my book relates to every single person in the world.
Amen. Well, Sonny, thank you so much for joining me today,
Thank you,
man.
brother.
I greatly appreciate you taking the time to join us today and talk about the new book. It's called Son of Southtown, My Life Between Two Worlds. It's going to be out here shortly. Sonny, thank you so much, man. I'm praying that the Lord continues to use you and P.O.D, whosoever
Thanks, man.
you're doing, man. So God bless you, brother.
You too, brother. It's good to see you again, man. Thank you.